It was obvious we were looking for a strong leader, someone who would hold the players accountable, someone who was tough, had a great work ethic, and quite frankly had experience. And when you combine that with the fact that he's won with the following quarterbacks, Nick Mullins, Jameis Winston, Stetson Bennett IV, and Lamar Jackson, all of whom have entirely different skill sets, and he's won running the ball, he's run passing the ball, made Todd a really attractive candidate. So excited to have him in the building. I think he's off to a good start building and rebuilding the staff, and I really, truly believe that good things are ahead. So happy to take any questions you have.
Jimmy, could you shed light on the future of Jim Schwartz?
Yeah, I think this. First of all, I think Todd made it clear. Andrew's made it clear. I think I made it clear back on January 5th. We think the world of Coach Schwartz. I think Jim and Jim's future is a subject for another day.
And just like I asked Todd about that, do you guys feel like, regardless of what happens with Jim, you will still have one of the most dominant defenses in the NFL, and you can assure your players of that as well?
I do. I feel really good. We have really good players, okay, and it starts there. It obviously helps to have a great coordinator and a great staff. We also have a great staff, and I think Jim would tell you the four leaders of the O-line, linebackers, or D-line, linebackers, cornerbacks, and safeties are all outstanding coaches. So we're excited moving forward.
Jimmy, why isn't this? Why can't you shed light on what's going to happen with Jim now?
Those conversations are ongoing. We'll talk about that at a later day. Today is to introduce Todd Monken as new head coach.
Jimmy, when did you, along the process, begin to think that Monkin was rising to the top? And you talk kind of in general terms about the toughness.
Yeah.
What else about him? So when and what?
Yeah, you go through a search process, and I think we started out with like 20, 25 candidates. I think we interviewed 9. I might be off by 1 there. And a search is, it's a little bit like this. It's a little bit of a roller coaster. Somebody drops out, somebody comes in. You get better references or better test results on someone or worse, so it's a little bit of a roller coaster. I would say Todd was at the top of the list the entire time. I think our search lasted 20 days, and I'd say he was in leading the pack or in the front pack the whole time, Terry.
Hey, Jimmy, what did you learn on your other coaching searches that affected you picking?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I didn't pick him. Okay, we picked him. All right, but I say that we, capital we, and I want to thank Andrew and our team in terms of process. And process is extremely important in these searches because they're very emotional. There are all kinds of information out there, and all due respect, a lot of it not accurate. And so by having an organized, disciplined process, which we stuck to, and I think the first coach, whoever hires the first coach or the second coach is not necessarily the winner. 2 years from now, nobody will remember whether Todd was the 7th or 8th coach hired, whatever he was. What's count is, did we get the right guy? And I think our team laid out a good process, and I think we were disciplined throughout that process the entire time up to last Wednesday when we announced Todd as our head coach.
Jimmy, you talked about his experience with the quarterbacks, and obviously Andrew before had mentioned whoever you guys hired as head coach would have a lot of input there. Like, how confident are you with Todd's experience that he can help give a long-term answer at that position?
Like, highly confident. Now, Andrew's got to help him, but we need players, but I'm highly confident.
How much did players interactions you have with players over the course of the process? I mean, Miles, Denzel, any of the senior, the veteran, leaders.
Yeah, I'll be honest. During the process, and Andrew might have been a little bit different. I didn't talk to any players, but JW, who's in the back of the room there, and myself interviewed 30 or 40 players post season and post the announcement of Kevin, and I think we got really good feedback offensively and defensively about what was needed.
I mean, two of the attributes that have been just repeated with Todd Monken is accountability and player development. Why were those two so important to this organization specifically, to you guys in this search?
Well, I think all of us who have run organizations understand you have to have accountability. And as I mentioned, when JW and I interviewed or spent time with 30 or 40 of our players, if you said, give me one common word, is we need more accountability. So that stuck with us. And then player development, I believe we'll have the youngest team next year in the NFL. So obviously you need to have somebody who appreciates and is good at player development.
Jimmy, Todd was the first external candidate that you guys interviewed. Was that just logistics? Or
Yes.
Why?
Yes.
Okay. Didn't tip off who you were heading to.
Yeah, and you remember you're dealing with lots of things. You're dealing with the Rooney Rule, okay? You're dealing with teams in the playoffs. The NFL has a much more controlled process than they've ever had before. As you'll remember, we were dealing with severe weather. So we were dealing with lots of different things. I wouldn't read the fact that we hired Todd it was because he was the second guy we interviewed. That's how it fell out.
Jimmy, you made it clear after you fired Kevin that you expected this team was going to win more than 8 games the last 2 years. So even though, as you said, you anticipate having one of the younger teams, is the expectation that this team's going to win a lot more this year than they did last year?
Well, let's be careful with a lot more, Daryl. But do I expect we'll win more games? I do. And I think we'll have a better football team. And I think it'll be, what's Terry say? They're ugly to watch sometimes. We're not going to be ugly to watch, okay? And I actually take that seriously. I mean, we want it to be a fun team to watch, a team that plays hard, plays smart, and most of all wins.
Todd's got a lot of personality. I mean, up there today, he cried, he was joking, he was cursing. What do you think? How do you think that influences coaching style? What do you make of his personality? I think players, and really all of us, want to see real guys. And what you saw today, that's how Todd is. It wasn't like, well, he's not really, he might cuss a little more, but that's really what Todd is like, okay? And you see the emotion, you see the faith, you see the drive, the work ethic, the confidence. What you saw for the 25 minutes he was up there today, that's Todd Monken.
Jimmy, you mentioned the process and you mentioned the test, and you guys, I think, took some grief for how you conduct your process. Do you think, first of all, do you think it's that different than what everybody else does in the league?
I have no idea, to be honest. I have no idea.
And what do you like about the way that you do it that includes the tests and asking guys to do, fill out?
Yeah, I think you have to be really careful to just weight everything on the interview, okay? Because sometimes strong personalities sell better than other personalities. And I think we put a lot of confidence in references, and we probably had 30 references on everybody. And obviously you put more confidence in some references by how high they are up the totem pole, okay? So I think that's important. I think the testing we put them through is important, the body of work, and then the interview. And those are the 4 things. We didn't short circuit. Everybody did the same, and I think it served us well.
Jimmy,
I know that the crews are about to start digging a hole for the dome. How concerned are you with lawsuits still pending? The lawsuit over unclaimed funds, the lawsuit filed by former Mayor Kucinich.
Yeah, well, let's put it this way. 4 weeks from yesterday, we're going to start the largest construction job in Cuyahoga County history, so I think that would tell you how confident we are.
And how important is it, too, because with the crew getting the Olympics there, how important is it to have the dome here and hopefully get some of those?
Yeah, I don't know if everybody read it, but the Olympics are actually going to take place in Columbus, Ohio, which seems a little strange since they're in Los Angeles. But there's so many soccer games, they need lots of venues. And so Columbus will have somewhere between 4 and 8 Olympic soccer games. And I just think that shows you, with world-class venues, what opportunities you will have. We will have that starting in 29 with new Huntington Bank Stadium.
Jimmy, 2 questions real quick. First of all, what did you make of Myles Garrett's reaction, and have you talked to him ever since he posted that thing on Instagram? That's my first question. My second question is going to be about Deshaun Watson, so I want to make sure to squeeze that in too.
Yeah, listen, I love Myles, okay? I haven't talked to him since the day after the season, but I'm highly confident Myles will come in here and break the sack record again and be the defensive player. He hadn't been named it, but I'll be shocked if he isn't, and will be a leader of our team.
Okay, and then the Deshaun Watson question is, do you guys feel like if Deshaun Watson is healthy, you have a potentially 3-time Pro Bowl caliber quarterback to offer to Todd Monken as he evaluates your quarterback room?
Yeah, I think that's somebody asked a question about quarterback today, and I think Todd knows a little bit from playing us, but really, he's an offensive coach, and he'll start looking at that, and that'll be Todd's call. We have 3 quarterbacks on the roster, and we'll let Todd give us advice, and he and Andrew will work from there.
Jimmy, two more. We're going to go Jason, we're going to go Tony.
Jimmy, I know we're doing Brown today, but Giannis obviously is a talking point in the NBA. Do you expect a Giannis trade?
I would say this, Jason. Giannis is, top 3, top 4 player in the world. He brought Milwaukee its first championship in 50 years, several years ago. And he's a really good person, too. He's no problem. He's a great leader, tries hard. And I think Giannis and the Bucks, and this goes back to before we were involved, have always worked closely to see what's best for Giannis and what's best for the Bucks, and we'll continue to do so.
What's a successful trade look like?
I can't, that's a question for John Horst.
Todd said he wanted to keep the same defensive system. You made reference to all the good assistant coaches you have on defense. Should we assume that they will be back definitively?
Yeah, we would hope so. We would hope so. I can't say definitively, but we would hope to have, by and large, we have a couple of free agents, the same players, okay, which is a great place to start, right? And then the same basic coaching staff.
Thank you, guys.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Good to see you all.
Hey, Scott. Scott, did you see all of the coaches were on break? I needed you to be. All of the defensive coaches.
Oh, where I saw John. That's a
John. I saw Brandon. I saw Todd.
No, Barrett, what are we doing?
I didn't look back.
I can get out of here then.
If you can do it, great. I don't know if you need, because I'm not set up. Tell me.
Yeah, they kind of want to go.
Hey gang, how we doing? Hey Andrew, how are you? I don't have an opener for you, so I'll let you guys just...
Andrew, what's been made of the process? And can you expand a little bit more on it maybe, and just the uniqueness of it compared to the way other organizations do it?
Yeah, so I can't speak to the way that other organizations do it, Chris. I guess when we look at the head coaching position, like it's a lot like if you were in the business world, you're hiring a CEO or a COO. right? This is a position that, across the league you may spend, call it 50 to 100 million on the hire, plus another 75 million on their staff, plus the impact that they have on the organization. And there has to be a level of thoughtfulness when you're going through that hiring process. So the way that we looked at it is okay, generally speaking, you have a 4-week period to make really a monumental hire for the organization, something that can alter your path, alter your strategic direction in a very positive way, or if you make the wrong hire, a very negative way. And so the way we went through the process is, one, we wanted to define, okay, what are we asking this individual to do in this phase of our team's life cycle? 2, what are the characteristics and attributes that we're seeking that would allow them to be successful? And then 3, how are we actually going to measure that? And the way we looked at it was, number one, it's performance, right? It's a performance-based business. We want someone with a good track record. We want to know what it was like working with these individuals from the people who have been with them over a long period of time. And then we also wanted to test their critical thinking skills in role-specific areas. And that's what the interview process was. That's what the the assessments were, and the work sample. So it was simple like that. That guided our interviews. I know a lot of teams, they may do it the flip way, where they'll interview to funnel. We did a lot of research on the front end to guide who we would actually even submit a slip for, and then use additional parts of the process, the interview process, to ultimately arrive at a result.
Andrew, was Todd someone that shocked you, or was someone that was always, for you, going to be right in the thick of things towards the end of this?
No, the way we went through is for us to get to the point where we felt comfortable submitting a notification form. They're called notification forms. You submit to the team, you submit to the league. We had done a lot of research on the front end to make sure that they matched what we needed and what we were looking for in the head coaching position. So it wasn't just okay, let's just submit for a number of different coaches and kind of go scattershot. We had done the homework on probably starting 50 coaches, then we funneled it to 23, and then ultimately the 8 external candidates that we submitted for before we even got to that point.
Andrew, I get 2 Jim questions. Number one, is there still a chance that he can come back as defensive coordinator?
Yeah, Scott, I'd say again, I'd repeat what Todd said, where we have a ton of respect for Jim and everything like that. There will be a time for that, but this is Todd's day.
And
opportunity to dig into what he has in the quarterback room that you have right now, that he will find what he's looking for right there in your quarterback room, or do you think there's a chance that he might want to look in the draft or free agency or the trade line?
Mary Kay, I think for us, I think I've mentioned it to at least all of you here, that we go into each offseason as if we have an expansion team. So, and particularly at quarterback, where it's the most important position in sports, we'll always do resource in terms of what opportunities are available in the veteran market and in the draft market. We've got to hire a staff first. After that, we'll certainly pick up the internal assessments with our own roster. But quarterback, no different than another number of other positions. We'll spend a lot of time assessing what options are out there.
Andrew, I'll go.
Okay.
I'm over it.
Age before beauty.
She does great. You mentioned, almost like in passing, that you thought you probably had maybe the youngest roster in the league. Where does that come from? Is that the plan, or?
That's just where we're projecting based on the amount of draft resources we have and then probably just anticipated activity in free agency. That combined with having a very young defense, we would anticipate that we'd be a very young team. We're not necessarily going to be at a phase where we're going to sign a bunch of mid-30s veterans to like put us over the top, so to speak. That doesn't mean that we're not going to participate in free agency or participate with veteran players, but the reality of having 10 selections, 8 that are in the top 150, and already a very young defense, and with pretty heavy investment on offense, in most worlds, we're probably going to be one of the younger teams in the league.
I know a few weeks ago when I asked you about the defensive system, and you said you don't believe your scheme specific, but obviously you like the way you guys play.
Mm-hmm.
And Todd talked about anticipating that scheme
Yeah.
stays the same regardless of what happens with Jim. Just how important was that? And I guess are you guys satisfied with that outcome with that side of the ball?
Well, we're certainly satisfied with the outcome, and part of the reason is because we hired Todd. But the second part I'd say is like in terms of the flexibility with the defensive system. We did talk to a number of coaches that we thought very highly of that, would have had some alterations with it. That was not necessarily a non-starter for us. We were looking for the person who best fit the characteristics we were looking for for this phase of the team. But yeah, like we think they play the style particularly well.
Andrew, 2 questions about 2019. Todd had mentioned you being a point of contact for him. What kind of relationship did that lead to? And then the second question is, I know you went to Philly, but in the interview process, what did he convey to you about his familiarity with the franchise and what he learned in that year?
So that's a great question, Nate, because the interesting part is when we were supporting Freddie with building out his initial staff, he's right, I was the point of contact. So we talked about things during the interview process. Supported him to get up and running, and then I think maybe like a week later I had gone to Philadelphia. Well, the flip side is when I was in the interview process for the general manager's position here, I called him, and I was like, okay, like essentially, hey, what happened in 2019? Obviously you can infer from the outside, but there are a lot of good people, there are a lot of good players there. I'm surprised the season went as it, and he was very honest and forthright, and so we always like kept in contact. I can't say that like. We were incredibly close throughout that time, but it was always a bunch of, it was really always a lot of mutual respect. Texted him after they won the national championship in Georgia. We always talked and texted like throughout the season when he was with the Ravens. Just always had a lot of respect for him. So I'm super pumped to have the chance to be able to work with him.
So
let me go someone who hasn't asked a question. I'm going to go Daniel first because I like him better than you, Daryl. So I'm just
It was reported that one of the questions, one of the testing questions or assessment questions was, what is your plan or how would you develop Shador standards? I guess just why was it important to include that question? Is that maybe indicative of the organization's hopes for him going forward?
So when we talk about player development, one of the things that we wanted to get a feel for with all the candidates was less about the specific player, but more about like the player archetype, so to speak. So Shador, right, is naturally that's like an example of like a young quarterback, and see what thoughts candidates had on that. We also had another young player on defense, and we also had a position coach as part of that because we wanted to see how the head coaching candidates thought about those things globally, given everything that's asked for them in that seat. Daryl, you're good.
Offensively, obviously, there's a lot of work that you have to do. You've talked about, hey, you can't fill every hole in one off season. Jimmy just, mentioned, hey, he doesn't expect the team's going to be more fun to watch this year, win at least more games than you did last year. So what's that balance and timetable look like from your perspective as you go to work this off season, trying to put that offense together with time?
Yeah, Daryl, I think, honestly, you just try and make the best decisions as they become presented to you. I think it's as simple as that. I think we believe in being very process-oriented and feeling if we have good process, it'll lead to good results. Todd's obviously very flexible in terms of what has been built for him and how successful he's been. But a big part of it does come maybe a little bit back to Mary Kay's question. I know she was talking about it more with quarterbacks, but just player availability in the marketplace. Like what types of players, what styles of players, and at what positions are they available? I guess like maybe by way of example, if we were sitting here last year and you would have said, hey, look, you're going to take a running back and an off-the-ball linebacker in the early second round. Said, okay, that's probably unlikely based on the player markets, that type of thing. But that's what we did because we felt like Carson and Quinshawn made the most sense in that moment, and they could be long-term fixtures on the roster. So I'd like to look for even my own sake. I'd like to have a little bit more clarity there, but the reality of it is we have a lot of work to do before we get to that point.
A couple more here. Could you clarify when you interviewed offensive-minded coaches, how much of a conversation was there about Schwartz as a defensive coordinator? It's been reported you demanded it, you suggested it. Yeah. It couldn't have been avoided, right?
Yeah, I think honestly that naturally comes up with staffing decisions, Tony. You always ask, okay, hey, look, what's your plan on each side of the ball for staff? What are the roles and responsibilities that you see as you round out your staff? And then, do you have familiarity, or what do you think with, your existing assistants? I'd say that's pretty standard across coaching interviews, Tony, and that was pretty standard with us.
Andrew,
have you asked one, Joe?
No.
Okay.
Andrew, in terms of Todd, from when you first met him in 2019 to now, and seeing him at Georgia and Baltimore, where have you seen him make the most evolution or growth?
I'll be honest, I actually think the most impressive part of, and maybe it's a little bit unfair to say growth, but he was one of the early air raid coordinators in college, right? Shotgun, one back, spread it out, up tempo. He goes to Tampa Bay. They're probably like the early adopters of the hard play action, hit the drifts over the middle of the field, get the ball out, have explosives with easy passes for the quarterback. And then, Georgia, they're a little bit of a marriage of a bunch of different things. I actually thought the coolest evolution was the contrast in his first 2 years in Baltimore. So he gets hired in Baltimore. They were largely a power QB run-based offense under Greg Roman. They were looking to see Lamar take another step as a passer. He wins his second MVP, where they're very much a pass-oriented offense, and he has one of the greatest passing seasons in NFL history. They go out and sign Derrick Henry the next year. I shouldn't say they completely changed their approach, but philosophically they were much different. They were power run, downhill, and they have another phenomenal offensive season. And to see that level of change just in a single year, adapting to the strengths of the personnel, it's very impressive.
Todd's got a lot of personality.
Yeah.
He's not afraid of showing it in front of the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy said he likes that Todd feels like a guy up there. What sort of asset do you think that can be for a coach?
Yeah, I actually think people, and players in particular, appreciate coaches that are authentic. Everybody comes in different packaging. Everybody in this room comes in different packaging. And all we want people to do is be themselves. Because if Todd can be himself, he's incredibly knowledgeable, he's incredibly credible, he's incredibly funny. I just think people will respect that.
Andrew, what did you make of Myles Garrett's reaction the day of both the hire and Jim supposedly leaving the building mad? And then what do you think Myles' response to all this is going to be? I don't know if you know where.
Yeah, I didn't see it, to be honest, Mary Kay. We kept Myles abreast of the process throughout. So he knew the news before you all did. So Myles is a great team player. I'm not really worried about that.
We're going to go two more. We're going to go Spencer, then we're going to go Coop.
Andrew,
I'll get you two. All right, we'll go three more.
This was your first time as GM going through the coaching search. Did it go kind of as you anticipated? If there were challenges along the way or disagreements along the way, how did you kind of work through those things? Just what was kind of your overall takeaways from it? What did you learn, and how did you kind of combat things?
Yeah, I'd actually say it's pretty similar to the ones that I had not led but been a part of, previously at previous stops. You learn and meet one thing I want to say, the NFL coaching community is in really, really good shape. I know people talk about there aren't big name candidates. There are a lot of really, really talented and really, really good coaches in this league if people take the time to look. And we learned a lot, throughout the past several weeks. We met with a lot of incredible people, and we were very happy with the process and how it turned out.
Andrew, that being said, can you just talk about the collaboration process? Obviously, there's some rumors that you wanted Shieldhouse and Jimmy wanted Monkin. Can you just shed some light on just the back and forth with you and Jimmy during this entire process?
I would say very respectfully, I think there is an underlying and stereotypical assumption for why people would say that. And I think that's completely unfair.
Andrew, it's kind of adjacent to Daryl's question, but I know you don't have a timeline for it, but how important is it for you guys to establish an identity, to create that identity early, both on offense and special teams? I know you want to keep the defense the same, but how important is it for you guys to create that and get a feel for what you have with Monkin and what this team ends up being come the start of the season?
Well, I think it's certainly important to have the identity before September 1st, that type of thing. But I think, the time leading up to it, and as we go through the different personnel avenues and the personnel cycles and things like that, we have time, and we'll do it slowly and deliberately and thoughtfully. All right. Thank you all.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Andrew.
Yep.